Hey guys, 1 second. I'm setting up my screen sharing, and we'll get started. Hey, can you guys hear me? You guys can feel free to put on your video microphones.
We can hear you.
Okay. Everybody else as well. Is there anyone that can't hear me? In case I can't. Okay. Give it like another minute or so, and we'll get started. All right, let me share my screen now. Can you guys see this right now? My slides?
Yes.
Everybody good? Nobody's talking?
Yeah, we can see it.
Am I the only buddy that's sharing my video now? I'm on the spotlight's on me. Okay. All right, let's get started. Thanks for coming. Oops. Let me make this smaller. I can't see my screen now. Cool. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief intro of who I am first. I'm born and raised here in Philly. I started real estate in 2018. Didn't have any background whatsoever in real estate. I was a musician for 5 years. I did some sales for a marketing company for like a year after college, but I didn't know anything about real estate. So I was completely new when I started. My first year, I did 11 transactions, a little under 4 million in volume. And I'm with Venture Philly, by the way, with the Venture Philly team. And now I coach our new agents that come on board. Whoops. So the number one thing, there's going to be, in my opinion, there's 2 major points of your first year in real estate. Number 1 is education, and number 2 is exposure and letting people know that you are an agent. So to expound on the first point, education is always going to be number 1. Your first year, make sure you remember that it's about learning and not about money. Obviously, everybody needs their livelihood, but your first year in real estate, it's typically tough. You know, you're typically not going to be a millionaire year 1. It's all about learning and setting, getting everything in order for the future, setting yourself up to eventually be able to use this as your main source of livelihood. Don't be afraid to screw up. Don't be discouraged if you do. Everyone does at some point. I certainly have. If you ask any veteran agent, I'm sure they all have stories of, a time they really screwed up. So don't be discouraged. Everyone does it. I'd also say just dive in. Like don't. A lot of people, I feel like, wait for the right time, quote unquote. It's really just your fear and anxiety speaking for you. Don't be a secret agent. It's the term that Keller Williams folks like to use. In other words, everybody should know that you're a real estate agent, and that's kind of the what I had said earlier about the second major point being, let people know what you do. That's most of your business is going to come from referrals and from your personal sphere. Your personal sphere can't give you business if they don't know what you do. And ask a lot of questions. I'm famous for asking a lot of questions. don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Just you got to learn as much as humanly possible. There's a lot of great mentorship at our brokerage in particular. There is a pro coaching program, as I'm sure you guys are aware. You can also join a team. So joining a team typically provides you with mentorship. You'll have some expense sharing and stuff, but you'll have a veteran mentor to kind of walk you through and learn from as you're starting your career, as opposed to kind of doing it on your own. I obviously joined a team right away. I joined Venture Philly, formerly the Attican Group. And what I also did was, my second bullet point here, take as many KW classes as possible, including this one. A really good one is Vicky's Agreement of Sale class. There's also the Reply to Inspections class. There's the Open House class. Just take as many as possible. I know it's a little weird now with it, everyone having to do it virtually. But, we're still doing them. We're still doing tons of classes every day, a lot of great ones. I would also try to read a lot of books about the topic. So a good one, obviously, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, if you're not familiar yet, is kind of like the Keller Williams Bible. It's written by Gary Keller. The model is based off of this book. Everyone should definitely get a copy. We might be able to provide you with one if you talk to Chris Stevens. The book on rental property investing is another book that I like to recommend. So if you're familiar with the forum Bigger Pockets, it's a forum for people who like to invest in real estate. It's the biggest one out there as far as I'm aware. And even if you don't plan on working with investors, which you should, it's good to know how they think, because when you're dealing with buyers or sellers, a lot of the same ideas come into play. It's not just the home, but it's also an investment for many people, whether they realize it or not. So that book is really good. It's really easy to digest for beginners. It's totally dumbed down. I didn't know anything about how this stuff worked, and it was very easy to understand. Has really great reviews too. You'll see on Google. And then my personal favorite self-development book, you may have heard of it. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It sounds like a scammy slimeball title, but it's kind of it's from like 1915. That's how they titled things. But it's basically just how to be, I don't want to say charming, but it's just how to connect with people and be genuine and be likable. And it's very important, I think, in this industry to be like that. And, it kind of helps you gain more self-awareness, is another way I'd put it. And how you behave around people. It's a great book. It's really short. The chapters are like 2 pages each. So definitely recommend that one. And then scripts is my last point here. There's a good response for every situation. Any objection you get, just because someone's not interested doesn't mean it's a no yet. Worst case scenario, you can always ask for referrals, for example, if someone's totally not interested. So practice those scripts, there's KW. I know KW provides some of those for you guys to practice. I would internalize those and make it so you understand them deeply, as opposed to trying to rote memorize them. Because you don't want to sound like a robot salesman. But the ideas in these scripts are what matters. Make them your own and practice. And then my next big point here is you want to be passionate about what you're doing. I see some chat. Let me check. Where can I find scripts? So that's a good question. I don't actually know. I would maybe ask either Brandon or Chris for scripts. There's also Bold. If you take the class Bold or Ignite, a lot of those classes that KW offers, they teach you those scripts. Ignite, I think, maybe coming up. I don't know how it's going to work this year, but there's also stuff on the KW website. I'm sorry, I don't have it totally. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's there. I would ask Brandon. I think he would probably know the soonest of where you can find the stuff. But you also learn them by attending classes, like a lot of I like personally to observe how other people talk to clients, customers. Like I like to listen to my team leader talk on the phone to clients, or I like to eavesdrop on people's phone calls in the office and see how they're talking to people. And, you steal lines from people, and you figure out good ways to say things. But you can also, worst case scenario, there's a lot of stuff on the internet. Just Google, real estate handling objections. I would Google. That's kind of like the sales term, handling objections. But yeah, I would ask Brandon. Short answer on that. Sorry, I don't have a specific spot for that. So going back to what I was saying before, people love what you do because people appreciate it. You don't want to look like you're just, going through the motions in a job, and I'm sure if you think about it, people that you've personally hired or worked with in the past, like, you probably really appreciated when they seemed like they were passionate about what they do. It's contagious, and people pick up on it. Learn about Philly. I think it's really important to know about the city and not just, numbers and houses, because, it's living in the city is very different from, like, well, I don't want to say that because some of you may not be working in the city, but what I'll say is learn about where you're going to be doing most of your business, whether it's Philly, the suburbs. Know about what's happening. I like to stay on top of the pulse of the city, like new developments, because you want to sound like an expert, like what every neighborhood is like, all the spots to eat and drink, parks and landmarks. So it makes people feel like you know what you're talking about when you're helping them to find a house or to sell a house. I like to subscribe to a couple of sites that give me some info on Philly in particular. I do most of my work in the city. So one of those is called Plan Philly, and you can literally just put your email address on the site and subscribe. It's like I don't know if it's daily, but they might have weekly emails. And it kind of just tells you, like, new stuff that's going on. Like, I'll get an email. It'll say, oh, there's a new development announced at, like, Broad in Washington. And then I can use that information then and bring it to my clients. And it's like, hey, like, there's going to be a development here. Like, if you buy this house a couple blocks down, it might be a good bet for appreciation, for example. There used to be a great site called Curbed Philly as well, but they are temporarily out of service for whatever reason. But that was really like the real estate blog about Philly real estate. Unfortunately, they don't exist anymore, but there's stuff like that. When you see it, I would subscribe. It can't hurt to get something in your inbox and read up on it. Look like you're having fun. Ultimately, that's the main goal with your passion, with demonstrating you have passion for the industry. And I try to do that on social media. I post a lot of stories on Instagram. That's kind of where I get most of my business from, my sphere. I like to, I don't try to post robotic stuff, just like pictures of houses. I like to kind of show personality, be a little bit goofy, show interesting things, and be excited about them. And I think people pick up on that. Oops, next slide. Another really important thing that I feel like was important to my success was be yourself, be authentic. I kind of touched on this earlier a little bit. You don't want to sound like a robot. You don't want to sound salesy. We all know when we walk into a store, we all can detect the phoniness, and when someone just wants your money, they just want to make the sale. Don't be like that, Don't BS people. Don't pressure anybody, because people aren't stupid. They know when you are money hungry. Just be authentic, be yourself. Don't be hungry. Don't be thirsty. Be honest. Show interesting things and tell interesting stories on social media. Be willing to move at other people's pace. That's a phrase I like to use when someone tells me they're not quite ready now. Just saying, hey, I'm willing to move at your pace. Kind of shows that you're not pressuring them. You're not giving them a false sense of urgency. And, you know, I've had people tell me that they've appreciated my attitude toward this stuff, and they come to me like a year later and be like, hey, like we met a while ago, but we really liked talking with you, and you know, I get business out of it. So I personally feel that it's really, really, really important. Most of the successful agents that I know come across as really authentic when they speak to people, and they don't seem like a salesperson. They seem like someone who is in the real estate industry and consults people and coaches people on the best decisions to make. And that's what you should be doing anyway, because we're all fiduciaries, right? Be human. Next slide. So my best lead sources, my first year, is going to be different for everybody. For me, open houses, definitely number one. I started hosting at least 2 per weekend when I started for a few months. It's just a couple, I know it's the weekend, but it's just a couple of hours. It doesn't feel like work. You're kind of just, you're sitting there and meeting people, and it's kind of cool because you're seeing a different house every weekend, and some of them are really nice. We have a Facebook page. I don't know if you guys get automatically invited, but I would inquire within, if not, but it's called Keller Williams Philadelphia Open House Opportunities, I believe. And people post all the time like, hey, we want to host an open house here. Can anyone cover? And you can find them there. You can literally just also message directly, like email an agent on a house that you want to host an open house on and say, hey, would it be okay if I hosted one? And usually they're okay with it because you're giving them free advertisement for their listing. You would just have to provide the sign and stuff. But 2 per weekend. Some people do 4. They'll do one in the morning and then one in the afternoon on Saturday and Sunday. I would just do as many as humanly possible. The reason they're so good for people who renew is that pretty much every guest is looking to buy a house, or if they're a newsy neighbor, they're looking to potentially sell their home and they're curious what this one is getting on the market. So you always have something to talk about. Got a question here. Any tips on how to make your open house stand out? So when you say to make your open house stand out, I'm assuming you're meaning like standing out from other open houses, like, or to get more people to come. Is that what you mean?
If you don't mind, I'm gonna unmute myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that, and once they're in the property, like sometimes I like to play jazz and maybe light some candles. Do you have any tips for once they're already in the property?
Yeah, so I don't do anything romantic like that. I kind of just I'm pretty boring. I just kind of sit, and unfortunately all they have is to look forward to is my face in there. And they come in and I just try to connect with them, and I make conversation like I'm just trying to make friends, basically. I don't try to sell them. You know, the point of, I don't know if, in case this hasn't dawned on you guys, I just want to emphasize the point of hosting an open house is not to sell the house. Obviously, we all want to do that. Like, that would be great, but it rarely happens. The point is to meet leads and to meet new people and to expand your sphere and your network and to get more Mets in your sphere. So what I have found is most successful for me is to just connect with these people. I don't necessarily even talk about, the house or open houses or real estate. I'll just, usually when they come in, the first thing I'll say, and this is a good line if you want to write it down, the first thing I'll say is, how did you hear about the open house today? And the reason I ask that is because it's my indirect way of figuring out if they have an agent or not. Because if they have an agent, they'll say, oh, our agent sent us here, or they sent us a list from our agent. If not, they'll usually say, oh, we were just walking by, or we saw it on Redfin or on Zillow. So I'll ask that to start. I'll ask if they live in the neighborhood. If they say yes, I'll ask them, oh, like, how long have you been here? I'm assuming, you must love it if you're there for 5 years, or if they just moved here maybe a year ago. How do you like it so far? And then you can kind of segue that into, are you looking to stay here? And is that the idea? Because, they're looking at an open house in their neighborhood. Or if they're not from there, if they're from another city or like a different neighborhood, I would ask the same thing. Is the idea to you guys maybe moving out here, or what's what are your goals? Now you don't have to necessarily be that direct about real estate. You can just keep shooting the shit with people and getting to know them. But I think the goal is to ask smart questions like that, where you want to learn about their goals. So if you do segue the conversation into real estate, what I try to do is figure out, without sounding like I'm prying, what they're looking for. So when you're going to help people to buy a house, you're basically going to put a search on Bright MLS, and you can set up an auto search. This is outside the scope of this class, but what you'll need to know basically is, how many beds do they want? Where do they want to be? Even with just those two, you can find them stuff. But if they have anything else, like maybe they want a really big kitchen, or, maybe they need an outdoor space, for example. You can even find out about their budget. Like, if you're in an open house that's selling for $400,000, you could say, without sounding too nosy, you can just say, is this around the budget you guys are looking at? I don't think that sounds nosy. You're just kind of, and you can even follow up with that and say, the reason I ask is because if I send you stuff, like if I have any opportunities, I don't want to send you anything that doesn't make sense, right? So I'm getting a little ahead of myself now, but you definitely just want to connect with them. And I think people want to work with people that they like just be likable. That's kind of where that one book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, comes into play. Helps with that kind of stuff. But oops, didn't mean to go back. Just start conversations. And I've had 30-minute, hour-long conversations sometimes at open houses. And, when you really connect with these people, it's hard for them to not want to work with you, and to say no. I also follow up as soon as possible. Sometimes I'll do it during the open house. They'll leave, and maybe I have some downtime because no one else is there at the moment. I'll find like a nice house that might fit their needs, and might text it to them. After they sign in, I might text it to them and say, hey, like I just saw this. Like, I'm here till 3:00, but if you guys are around, I could show it to you when I'm done. And I've done that before. Like, if especially ahead of time, if you research the market, the immediate area of the market, before you host the open house, so other active properties, you can talk to the guests about those properties and say, hey, when you ask for feedback of the house that you're hosting, maybe they say, oh, the kitchen's too small for us. But because you researched, that there's one down the block for sale that has actually a really big kitchen. And you can bring that up to them, and you can say, hey, do you want to see it when I'm done? Always go for the ask, by the way. Always make the ask directly. Don't leave things open-ended. Ask direct questions that will get direct answers. So sometimes, going back to following up, sometimes I will, if not during the open house, I'll try to do it. If it's a really good lead, I'll do it as soon as I get home or as soon as I'm done. What I'll usually do is send houses from a Bright MLS search that kind of fits what they were looking at. If it's a seller lead, I'll maybe I'll give them some kind of data on the market, or like some comps for their house, and try to schedule an appointment to come take a look. But if it's a buyer, which is usually what you're going to find at open houses, I'll send them stuff from an MLS search. I'll ask about off-market properties from our fellow agents. So we have a Facebook group where you can always ask, hey, does anyone have anything coming up that has 3 beds in Northern Liberties, under $400K, something like that. So it doesn't have to come straight from the MLS, but if you can find off-market opportunities, that really makes you stand out as an agent. And you can say that when someone is at your open house, say, hey, I have your information. Would you mind if, I know that you're probably doing a good job on Zillow on your own searching for stuff, but we do have a list of like off-market stuff. If anything comes up, would you mind if I pass it along? No pressure. But, and usually they'll say yes. Like, why would you say no to that? So that's, I was just kind of giving that as a segue to contacting them and getting permission to follow up with them when you're finished with the open house and meeting them at the open house. So I didn't mean to ramble there, but ask smart questions, keep practicing. Don't be afraid to host the open houses. Don't, at the beginning I felt like I didn't know anything and I didn't want to sound like a moron when I was there, but you got to just get that stuff over with. You're going to probably sound pretty dumb the first couple of times, but you have nothing to lose. It's okay to sound dumb. You could also see if someone's willing to let you shadow them hosting an open house. I would ask if you're on a team, obviously you should shadow someone on your team or a team leader. If not, I would ask someone that you've seen. I guess I was going to say seen around the office, but some of you probably haven't been in the office. But ask an agent, and sometimes they'll let you shadow. Right now, there's no open houses happening, so I know it's tough. But once hopefully restrictions are lifted, we'll be able to get back into that. Otherwise, and this is what I've been focusing on more, especially during the quarantine, is social media. For me, it was huge. It's still huge for me. I try to post every day, even if it's just stories. In fact, I post mostly stories on Instagram. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it's just kind of like a temporary post that you can post. Goes away in 24 hours. It's less serious. It's like a little more informal than like a permanent post on your page. I like to post stuff I see around the city, like different neighborhoods or cool houses, cool features in houses. Whenever I'm doing anything real estate related, I try to post on Instagram a story. Like if I'm at an inspection, if I'm hosting an open house, if I'm doing showings, I try to post, and the whole point is to stay top of mind. It's not to sell things to people. It's just to remind people that, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Like, this is what I do, and I can help you. Try to mix it with personal things, not just all real estate. This is something I had to do a little bit of a better job on. But they say, I think the quote unquote research says to try to make the ratio like 3 personal things to every 1 real estate post. And I would say a lot of people ask if they should make a separate account for their real estate business. I personally say no. I think you should just mix it in with what you do already. You can make a separate one if you want, but I would at least cross post from that on your personal page. The reason being is that your sphere is already following you on social media. They're your friends on Facebook, they're your friends on Instagram. Not everyone's going to want to refollow a new page. Like, you're going to have less people, and all those people are going to be the same. They're already encapsulated in your personal page. So I don't see the point. Just be professional. Like, you can be a little goofy, but if you have any like really stupid pictures, maybe consider getting rid of them. But yeah, I would mix it with your personal page. Because it's part of who you are now. It's not just your job. You're a business owner. You got to think of yourself as a business owner. So business owners aren't ashamed of what they do. They post about it. And then be authentic. Like I said, don't be salesy on there. People know it's annoying. So be authentic on social media. Your best lead sources, I don't know. You're going to have to try things out. Other ideas, people networking is really good. Just obviously the more people you meet, the better. Encapsulated in that would be door knocking. I've never done door knocking, but I know a lot of people do. There's an agent, Jerry Wells, with the Jerry Wells team, who he does this a lot, door knocking, and he gets a lot of business from it. Cold calling, I don't do cold calling either, but a lot of people do. And a lot of people do really well with it. They'll call expired listings or for sale by owners. Neighborhood associations is another way to meet people. So like, for example, I lived in Spring Garden, so I joined the Spring Garden Neighborhood Association. And a lot of people who are involved in these associations are very, they're already interested in their neighborhood and what's going on. So real estate can be a natural conversation when you're talking to these people. A lot of them are advocates for their neighborhood and they want their friends and family to move closer to them. So if they know you're an agent, they might refer you to them. Or if they are looking to, obviously, if they're looking to move, there's a good chance you get a listing from it. You can also join clubs and sports. Basically, the idea is the more people you meet, the better. I've seen that the most successful people, I feel just, obviously you want to work hard, but a lot of the really successful people just know people. They know a lot of people, and they put a lot of work into meeting people. They're always at events, networking. They're always talking to people. The more people you can get into your sphere, the better. And that, before I forget, if you guys are familiar with Alan Dom, who is a big realtor, he's like a real estate magnate in Philly. He owns like the whole city basically, but he's also a politician. He was once at an event we were hosting, and he said, the two most important things in being successful in real estate were knowledge, number one, and availability, number two. So knowledge, just like I was kind of talking about before, know your market, know about the real estate industry, take those classes, learn about the agreement of sale. Especially, I would, by the way, study the agreement of sale, just like read through it and try to understand it so you can talk to clients and you can talk to people about how the process works. You can talk to buyers about what protections they have when they're buying a house. That helps you at open houses because a lot of people are first-time home buyers and they don't know a lot. And you can sound like an expert without really being one, even if you just know a few things about how the offer and the agreement of sale works. So he said knowledge is number one. Number two, availability. So you want to be available for people. People in this day and age, especially if they need something, like will text you, they want a response real quick. They don't want to wait 24 hours like you're a bank, right? They want you to be available. Like I personally, unfortunately, because I'm a night owl, and some people will send me an email or a message real late, like past midnight in some cases, and I'll get back to them right away because I'm awake. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, obviously, but it's just to make an example. Like people have told me they really appreciated that I respond right away when they message me, even if I don't know the answer to a question or I don't know anything. I'll acknowledge them and say, hey, I'm going to look into this for you. I'll get back to you a little bit later. I think just feeling like they have you there, always available, is going to get you really good testimonials. They're going to really like working with you, and they're going to give you referrals. Your business, the people who have really big businesses right now have most of the business from referrals and past clients. So you want to do a really good job. You want to be look long-term, not short-term, right? Cool. So knowledge and availability, those are the two things. Art of the follow-up. So to me, the most important thing to be consistent about, at least for me, was following up with people. So I kind of touched on this when we were going through open houses. I always use my CRM, which I use Follow Up Boss, it's called. I know KW is encouraging everyone to use KW Command. You can use that as well. Whatever you may use to keep track of everybody. I try to always set a follow-up task with any lead. Even if they're a shit lead, I'll still say like a year from now, check in with them and see how they're doing. So I just want a reminder. And what I'll do is I'll go to my tasks list where I'll have all those follow-ups that I had set that I don't even remember setting, but they're there now. And I'll go through them and I'll just follow up with everybody. And sometimes, and don't be afraid to call them either. Usually I'll text. You tend to get more responses nowadays from texting versus email. Once in a while I'll call them, depending on the relationship, but texting tends to get more responses than email right now. And I try to come from contribution. What that means is give them something. Don't just try to take something, right? Don't just try to be like, hey, following up, like, what's up? Like, try to give them something. So you can send them a new listing, for example, like, hey, this house was just listed. Like, looks like something that you guys might be interested. Do you want to take a look? You can send them a home buyer's guide if you have one. You can send them news about a new development in the city that you just heard. Maybe you just read it on Plan Philly's newsletter. You pass it along. And on that note, when I send people new listings, I like to send them in direct emails, and I'll actually like insert images, a couple of images, not all of them, but a couple of images too in the email, instead of just putting a link, because some people can be lazy, and if you do the work for them, half the job is finished. And I'm saying to do this as opposed to sending them through Bright MLS. So when you set up, it's called a concierge, but when you set up a search for someone on Bright, you can send the properties as soon as they're listed directly to their email, but it comes in like an automated thing. Like it looks like not personal. Like it looks like it's from a website. It'll be like, oh, like new listing for blah, blah, blah. It looks like it's from like Zillow or something, but I like to make it personal. So I'll take that and put it in an email instead, like an actual physical manual email that I'm writing out, and say, hey, this block is really nice. Like this was just listed. Like, do you guys want to take a look? And on that note, you always want to, I kind of said this before, but you always want to make the ask. You always want to have a direct question at the end of your correspondences. In most cases, I don't want to say always, but in most cases. So when you send them a house, when I'm sending someone a listing, I'll say, hey, I have some time Wednesday, like after 3, or Thursday before 5. Like, do you guys want to check this out? As opposed to saying, hey, let me know if you want to see this, or like something general like that. You want to have a direct ask, yes or no question. If they're interested, they're going to say yes. But you want to be direct like that. And it's the same when I'm texting people from open houses too. I try to have some kind of call. It's called a call to action. I'll have some kind of call to action where I'm saying, do you guys want to check stuff out this weekend? I'm free after 12. Or do you guys want to see this house tomorrow? And give them a couple of times that work. So there's also a script for everything. I kind of said that earlier. There's always something you can say to somebody, no matter what their response is. And don't look butthurt about it if they say no. Always seem understanding. Understand that not everything is going to be a yes. You're not always going to. Not every lead you meet is going to lead to a sale. You got to expect that and not get discouraged if someone says no. Don't let it look like it's brought you down. Be resilient. And don't forget to ask for referrals. And that goes for anyone you meet. Just let them know your business is primarily referral based. You don't get salary. So you really appreciate that. If they have anybody looking to buy or sell, right? Next slide. Said this before, be human. So in my correspondence, I kind of take a different route. I don't try to look super professional, but it's on purpose. I'll put some lowercase letters like in my text. I won't like capitalize the first letter of a sentence. I'll put emojis sometimes. One thing I like to do is I'll send multiple messages in a row. So like if I'm texting them, I'll say something, and then I'll say like in a second text, maybe a couple minutes later, like, let me know, or, oh, by the way, blah, blah, blah. But like, if you segment it, I feel like it looks more like a human and less like it's a bot that's talking, like an automated bullshit text that they're just copying and pasting. And I try to be goofy and fun when it's appropriate. You don't have to be, like I keep saying this, but you don't have to be just a salesperson. Be someone that's fun to talk to and do business with. When you are following up, I have a stupid joke here, but basically, don't write a huge novel on your follow-up. Keep it short. People are busy. They don't, you're typically not there unless they are your best friend. Most of the people you aren't going to be dealing with aren't going to be your friends at all. So they don't really care about you. They don't want to see a whole thing. Just a couple of sentences, get to the point, be direct, keep it short. I try to do 1 to 2 sentences if I can, like super short, one question. I find that if I ask more than one question, I typically don't get a response. So keep it short, keep it sweet, get to the point. It goes for texting, email, anything you do. And, just to kind of finish here, I said this before, I'm going to say it again. You're going to get rejected. You're going to get ghosted. You're going to get bitched out by a bunch of people. It's going to happen a lot. Just don't take it personally. The way my mentor put it to me was that people reject the opportunity, not the person. It's just however they respond to you, it's their way of saying they're not ready yet, right? They don't know anything. Typically, it's going to be strangers you're talking to. They don't know anything about you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just people, they're not always ready, and you're going to get rejected. I get ghosted all the time from open house leads, and people who seem like they're really, really good leads that want to work with me. All of a sudden, I don't hear from them. You're going to have friends, really close friends, work with other people, and it's going to really, really discourage you. It's going to feel like shit. Everyone has a story about that. But just know that it's going to happen. Don't get discouraged when it does. Next slide. Come on. Sorry, one sec. That's it. So I want to open this up for Q&A. I have my contact info here. Email, phone. I have my Instagram handle. Feel free to follow me. My social security number is there if you want to steal my identity. But if you have any questions, you can feel free to put your microphone on. You can put it in the chat, like anything at all. There's no stupid questions.
I have a question, Scott.
Sure.
What are your suggestions for a part-time agent in their first year?
Good question. So I actually at first thought I was going to do this full time. I ended up doing, or part time. Ended up doing it full time. So do you have like a 9-to-5 job?
Yes, I do.
I'll be honest, it's really tough. A lot of people are going to tell you the same thing. It's really tough to be part time and to be successful because in the beginning you have so much that you have to put into it. I would still, you just got to grind really. You got to the same ideas are going to be at play. You're going to want to do open houses. You're going to want to, advertise on your social network, social media that you're an agent, like drill it into people's heads. And hopefully you'll start to get business from that. And, I don't know if this is your goal, but a lot of people's goals is to transition from part-time into full-time real estate where they don't need to have their 9-to-5 job anymore. But, I don't want to BS you. It's probably going to take up a lot of your time if you have 9-to-5. But it's not impossible by any means. You just got to put the work in, especially on the weekends with the open houses. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, and also a follow-up if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
Do you use any kind of special like software or application to follow up outside of, I believe, Command?
Yeah, so I use Follow Up. It's called Follow Up Boss. It's basically a different version of Command. It's just a CRM. I use it my team uses it. We kind of have like a whole system on there already, so we haven't fully transitioned into Command yet. But aside from Follow Up Boss, that's all I can really think of that we use. We have like a third party like marketing company that helps us out with some social media stuff, but that's all I really use. And I don't even use all the features. I just set tasks to follow up with people. I'll write notes. This is another thing I forgot to mention. When I'm at an open house and I meet people, as soon as they leave, I'll like furiously write a bunch of notes, like anything I can remember. Like if their dog's name is Skip, like anything I can remember whatsoever, I will write it down, because later on, like when you recall those things, people, they think that you were listening really well, and they'll say, oh man, you have a really great memory. Yeah, Follow Boss is all we use. I see a question from Nicole. Did mentorship play a huge role in your success in your first year in real estate? That's 100% yes. I feel like I would be totally in a different place right now if I didn't have a mentor. My team leader, Antonio Adican, he actually founded our brokerage. Gaurav purchased it from him about 1.5 years ago or so. But he was the original founder about 10, 11, 12 years ago, something like that. And so he knows, he's been in the industry for a while. He obviously grew the brokerage to be so big. He knows a lot of stuff. So I was learning under him. His brother, Adam, was also on the team. There's also Aaron Biles is another person on my team who's been in the industry for a long time. I would absolutely, like, mentorship was like the number one thing. Like, anytime, I didn't know what the hell I was doing at first. I didn't know how to write an offer or anything like that. Like, I asked people for anything I didn't know, I had to ask a mentor for. So if I was solo, like, I would have to rely on Google, which is not super reliable because you have people posting answers from all different states and different situations. It's best to learn from someone who's in the business. So I definitely recommend, if you're not going to join a team, to at least do pro coaching. It might be mandatory. I don't even know, to be honest, but mentorship, definitely huge. Does that answer your question, Nicole?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else? Anything at all? Anything that you guys are like worried about, or that you guys feel most concerned with being new? Like, I don't know, is there anything that you guys feel like the most lost in regards to? Feel free to turn on your mic and shout out if you don't feel like typing. If there's nothing, I'll let you guys go. But leads, okay, Kayla says leads. So leads, just going to go back to what I said before: open houses, social media, and anything else you can do to meet people. Most people's first transactions are people they know. My first two were my personal sphere. My third transaction was it was actually a lead from my team. Some teams will help you get leads as well. They'll get, like, if someone like inquires on the website or something, they'll like distribute it to all the agents, like an order, for example. My first transaction, that was a stranger that I didn't know whatsoever that I met. It was in an open house. It was I started in September, and this was in early January. So it was like 4 months or so. I was hosting an open house. They didn't quite like the house that I was hosting, but I found another one while they were with me. I found another one that seemed to fit the bill for them. It was right down the block, and I told them to meet me. Actually, I found like 3 or 4 different ones, and I told them, I asked if they wanted to meet me when I was done. I was finished at 3. I said, hey, if you guys are around, I can show you these other guys, these other houses. And they lived nearby. They had nothing else to do. They were an older couple. So they're like, sure. And we saw one. We put an offer in that day, and that was that. So it's going to take a while at first to get strangers business. That's why it's really important in the beginning to work your personal sphere and keep posting and expose people to what you do. And then Kayla asks again, do you have a content schedule? Do you have a content schedule as far as social media? How do you stay organized? I don't have a content schedule. That's just kind of not my style. I think it's a good idea. I tend to be a little lazy with that stuff, to be honest, and I kind of just wing it. But with Instagram stories, and Stacy Ryle with our brokerage teaches a class on using Instagram. I think the way she puts it is you want to give people like a sneak peek into a day in the life. So a day in the life to me is not, always planned out. So I don't plan stuff like that. If I have like a permanent post, I'll sometimes plan that in advance. Like I'll try to post on, I tend to get the most interactions on like Wednesday at like noon or at 5 p.m., like either lunch or like right when people are done work. And you can actually do this. You can make your Instagram profile a business profile. It doesn't change anything except you can like have buttons to say like contact this person or whatever. Like it doesn't change much. Like I would recommend doing it. It's in the settings. You can make it a business profile, and you can actually get insights because you do that. And you can see what time all your followers tend to interact with you the most, what time, where your followers are from. Like you get all that kind of data, and I'll use that to try to post at the right time to get the most exposure. With my Instagram stories, they stay up for 24 hours, so I don't care. I'll post it whenever. But I don't schedule posts in general. How do I stay organized? It's probably a flaw of mine. I should probably be a little bit more organized, to be honest with you. But I would just try to post every day. And the more real estate stuff you do, the more you look at houses and host open houses, the more content you're going to have to post. Even if you're just walking around the city, you could take pictures of nice stuff. You can, tag the neighborhood in the post, and maybe you could say, you don't have to make it about real estate, but you can throw in a little line about there, like my favorite neighborhood or something. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a better answer for that, but it doesn't have to be super serious. You can just post a lot. And even if you have no clients, you can at least preview properties and you can get inside houses still. A lot of people I've seen, I had someone in my downline that I recruited to the industry. What she would do is she would preview houses by herself and take video of it, or pictures at least, but she did take a lot of good video, and they were really nice houses, and she would post it on social media and people would comment and be like, oh my God, this house is beautiful. Like, it would get a lot of conversation going. And she would say, like, message me if you're interested. Even if it's not her listing, she could still represent people as a buyer, right? So it's smart. So there's always ways to get content to post. Just the more exposure, the better. It's a game of numbers. I hope that answers your question a little bit. And if it doesn't, just let me know.
I have a question, Scott.
Sure.
I just keep asking questions. Maybe it's too basic, but how do you handle the initial conversation when you're starting to get too personal? Do you give them the oral consumer notice?
So I don't give my consumer notice. I feel like it's kind of a gray area. You're going to get different answers from different people. I'm not giving a consumer notice to someone that walks in an open house, because they're going to be like freaked out. They're going to be like, what the hell is this? I'm not signing nothing. I just want to see this house, right? I don't have them sign a consumer notice until they're putting an offer in on a house. I don't know if that's technically what you're supposed to do, to be honest, but that's what I feel like most agents, if not all agents I know, do with the consumer notice. It says you're supposed to give it to people on the first like substantive conversation. To me, that's when they're talking about putting an offer in. I just find it scares people away, even though it's not a contract and it says that at the top. I talk to them when they come into the open house, for example. I'll make conversation. I don't say anything about, a consumer notice. I just try to segue into getting, saying, hey, I'm going to follow up with you. Like, I'll send you some houses if that's okay. Like, I try to have some follow-up set up where I give them a heads up. Hey, like, is it okay if I send you houses? Or, do you guys want to see this one house that I talked to them about later today or later in the week or something? Another good way, by the way, to follow up with people at open houses is to talk about if they're pre-approved yet, and recommend that that's the first step that they take. Because a pre-approval is going to get them, it's going to give them more clarity in terms of what their budget is, because that's the actual number that they can be approved for with a mortgage. Not only that, it's required to make an offer. Like, no seller is going to take an offer seriously without a pre-approval. So you want to have that ammunition ready, is the way I would phrase it. And just, it's free. It's a free process. You want to be proactive about it. If you need to prepare your credit or do anything else to be approved, like, you want to go on top of it. Once you have that conversation, you can say, hey, like, I can connect you with a lender that I work with. Like, if you don't mind, I could make that introduction through email. And then there you go. You send them an email with them and a lender. We have 3 great lenders in our office that you can talk to and meet and get to know, and you connect them with one of them, whichever one you feel like is the best fit, or maybe you know a different lender. But it's another good way of being able to get in touch with someone at an open house and having an excuse to contact them. And even if they say, oh, we're going to go through our bank, you could just say, hey, like, talk to my guy, talk to my person. If anything, like, it's good to shop around, get a second opinion. And, banks are notoriously not great to work with for transactions. They're only like 9 to 5, 9 to 4 maybe. Whereas a private lender is going to be more hungry. They're kind of like us, they work on commission. They're going to have conversations on weekends at night. And they tend to have better rates and stuff too. So at worst case, they just get a different, a second quote. So there's almost no reason not to. So I just wanted to throw that out there, as it's another good way to stay in touch with people after an open house. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't give the consumer notice until we're making an offer. It's part of the You can actually, when you set up a search on Bright MLS, when you set up a concierge search, which again, outside the scope of this, but you can learn that elsewhere. But there's a box you can check that says where you can send the consumer notice, and they'll digitally just like click like acknowledge or whatever. So you can actually do it that way, and I'll do that sometimes. That's probably the best way to do it. Does that answer your question, Denelsi?
Sorry, I was typing. Yes, it does.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Anything else? Any other questions at all? Okay, well, if not, if anything comes up later, feel free to, like I said, follow me on Instagram. You can ask me on there. You can email me, call, text me. All my contact info is here. So yeah, thanks for attending. I appreciate it. I know it's a little weird virtually, but it's good that you guys are attending class and trying to improve your craft. So good for you. And contact me in the future if you have any questions. And I wish you guys luck. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for the info.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
Thank you.